Hello, and welcome to our series, Conversations on Zionism, Reclaiming the Narrative. I'm Russell Robinson, Chief Executive Officer of Jewish National Fund USA. We build in the land of Israel through your philanthropic investments. Our water solutions, groundbreaking research and development, and reclaiming the desert are shared the world over. In the United States, we are the leader in Zionist engagement, reaching over 20,000 students a year. Today, Israel serves as a light unto nations. Today, Israel makes the world a better place. As I travel the world and meet so many people of all ages, I share their frustration. The definition of Zionism, our people's movement for self-determination, has been hijacked by those who are anti the Jewish people and who have no understanding of history or facts. Well, no more. The time has come to be the voice of what Zionism really is. Zionism comes in all colors, shapes, and sizes. It's inclusive, diverse, respectful. Zionism builds bridges. It's about freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of expression. It's a beautiful movement that has changed the course of the Jewish people. Zionism gives all of us strength. Zionism supports Israel, a country where synagogues, mosques, churches all share the same skyline. A country where Christians, Jews, and Muslims live as neighbors and sit around the table. And while they have different views, they all have a seat within the tent of Abraham. Jewish National Fund USA is hosting a series of real stories, human interactions, short films, interview, panel discussions, and more. We're exposing the beautiful and diverse facets and facts of Zionism. Join me on this journey, together with Conversations on Zionism, Reclaiming the Narrative. This is Zionism.
Imagine a conversation about Israel, global Jewry, the leaders of today, of tomorrow, with people from Dimona, Denver, Kiryat Shimona, and Oklahoma. For the first time in Jewish history, Jewish National Fund is creating a conversation that will build bridges across generations, denominations, politics, and oceans, direct from Beersheba in the footsteps of Abraham. A state-of-the-art village that will inspire Jewish leaders of all ages and backgrounds from all across the globe. A campus surrounded by sports fields, a 1,300-acre park, a 28-acre lake, an amphitheater, a 26-screen cinematheque, and Israel's largest mall. The campus will include an internship, innovation, and technology center, the first Zionist adult education center in the world, the southern campus of our semester abroad high school in Israel, top quality conference center facilities, study areas, a food court, restaurants, a synagogue, beautifully landscaped outdoor space, classrooms, and comfortable, modern overnight accommodations for short and long-term stays. Join us as we embark on a journey to build the first campus of its kind, a campus that says, we believe in the future of global Jewry. In 1901, there was Theodore Herzl. In 1948, there was David Ben-Gurion. Today, there is you.
Hello and welcome to our special JNF panel, Young Jews Talk Justice. This is the first out of two panels discussion on the issues of Zionism, of Jewish identity, and many other topics that we're going to cover. My name is Chen Mazig. I'm an Israeli writer, and I'm a senior fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute. And I have the privilege of speaking to three incredible young Jews today. Joining us from Montreal is Isabella Hazan, a young Jewish activist and a law student in University of Ottawa. Hi, Isabella.
Hi, Chen. I'm looking forward.
Me too, us too. I have the privilege of speaking to Amy Albertson as well. Amy Albertson is an Asian American, Jewish Israeli from California. While living in Israel for 6 years, created a brand, The Asian Israeli, where she discussed her mixed identity and experiences as a Chinese American Jewish woman and a really good friend of mine. Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining us. And last but not least, Noah, which is also known by his stage name, Westside Gravy. Noah Chaputinsky fuses his passion for Jewish culture and history with his lived experience growing up Black and Jewish across the US. Good to have you, Noah. How are you?
Doing great. I'm really happy to be here.
Great. So I had the privilege of meeting all of you doing my work for the last 10 years, being involved on college campuses and speaking on campuses, meeting all of you incredible people as students, fighting anti-Semitism, reclaiming Zionism. And I want to ask you a few questions, and I want to start with Isabella. I want to ask you, what do you think is, for you, the most provocative idea about Zionism and Jewish nationalism or Jewish state?
So first, Chen, a lot of your work has inspired me from a young age. And my most provocative idea, I have two, but they go hand in hand. The first one is how we teach about Israel and how we teach about Zionism. And Israel is a safe haven for the Jewish people, but when we show and when we only explain that Israel is a safe haven, we lose the whole idea that, well, we're indigenous to this land. This is the land that we come from, and this is a land that we are connected to. So I think that's a really big problem in Jewish education, because oftentimes I say, things are going well for Jews in the diaspora. We can forget about our ancient and ancestral homeland. So I think that's a huge flaw in Jewish education. And my second one would be why we use the term anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a non-Jewish movement. It was created by Wilhelm Marr, and it was designated to replace the word Judenhass, which meant Jew hatred. So it almost makes me think, like, do our oppressors know our story more than us? The reason that they changed the word Judenhass to anti-Semitism was because that Jew hatred cannot be rooted in science. And Jew hatred has existed way before the 1800s, before this term was created. So why are we still using this term? The same way anti-Zionism is a non-Jewish movement, anti-Semitism is also a non-Jewish movement. Why can't we just call it anti-Jewish racism or just Jew hatred? And the hate that our people has faced predates this word, and we give Wilhelm Marr too much credit, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm going to ask you another follow-up question on that. You're saying that we shouldn't really focus on anti-Semitism or anti-Jewish hatred as you describe it. But do you think that this is an important part of the story, that while we need to explain to people that we are indigenous and that we have right to the land, we should also make sure that they understand that our oppression wasn't just limited to the Holocaust and we had more than that? What do you think about that?
So absolutely, Chen. I think that when we're discussing Jewish education, it's important that we have both talk about the Jewish trauma. Like my family, they were dhimmi, second-class citizens in Morocco, one among 850,000 Mizrahi Jews. But also on the other hand, we have to grapple with the fact that Israel is also a safe haven for the Jewish people, and that's a consequence of us having a strong connection to it. It's to have both the fact that we're indigenous to the land and the fact that Israel is a safe haven for us. And I think that when we're talking about Jewish education, a huge flaw is when we talk about one or the other. And it's important to really include both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Including both why we have a connection to this land and why we went back there. Another important point is, how do we get other minority groups to understand that? And I want to ask you, Amy, because when I read your introduction, I was talking about you being an Asian woman, an American, an Israeli, Jewish woman, all this intersection of identities. You probably know better than most people what we need to do to get other communities and other minority communities in America to join us or to understand better our fight. What do you make of this effort that the Jewish community should put in?
Sure. I mean, I want to start off with, I think many more Jews are intersectional like me. I mean, look at our faces that we have here today. So that's something really important. And I think that leads me into my next point. That is, I think one thing that the Jewish community can do is we really need to take these conversations outside of our community and educate other people. I think, two of my big tenets are, one, which is what Isabella spoke to a few minutes ago, and that is that we need to be educated ourselves. I know that I've learned so much as an adult person about Judaism, Zionism, Jewish identity, and being proud in that way. And I think we need to take that outside of the community. One thing that I've seen with, for example, the Stop Asian Hate movement is it's very much about as much as we educate our elders to be safe from this racism that they might experience, we are going out and telling other people about what's happening and who Asian people are. And I think that a lot of our conversations about Zionism and Jewish identity and who the Jews are, as much as internal conversations are important, people on the streets don't know who the Jews are, right? They picture Woody Allen and people eating bagels and deli, and that's generally, at least for Americans, what they think. If they see Noah, Isabella, myself, even you, Chen, and you tell them that you're Jewish, they're probably very surprised. And I think Zionism and who the Jews are is being defined for us. Like Isabella also said, even the word anti-Semitism was defined for us. And I think a big part of reclaiming that is to tell others, this is actually what Zionism is. It's not so controversial like you think it is. It's pretty basic, and it's pretty justified. And I think that's really a big difference that I see.
This is such a brilliant point. And I think while you were talking, I was thinking about how there's a lot of education that we need to do internally. I understand that. And I know that, you were talking about people in the street not knowing that you're Jewish, but even in Jewish communities around the world, when I was traveling and speaking, people second guessed the fact that I was Jewish. I had to speak Hebrew to prove it. So I think even within our community, we should do a lot of work to educate people that being Jewish comes in every color, but also doing it. And that's the important part that I just want to emphasize. We need to speak to other people. We need to get other people to understand that and get out of our own circle, because we don't have to convince each other about Zionism or about Jewish identity, because we're all in agreement. And it's echo chamber that doesn't take us anywhere. As someone that is also in the intersection of being Black and Jewish, Noah, I want to ask you if you think that the Jewish involvement in social justice movement is right, or what do we do right and what are we doing wrong in your eyes?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think one thing that definitely I think is going well right now is I've just become so accustomed to seeing Jewish individuals, organizations at the forefront, and either at the forefront of fighting against certain social justice issues right now, or standing alongside in solidarity with other groups of people who are fighting for justice. And I think that part of what I'm seeing right now is a lot more people are being conscious of the way that those issues affect members of our own community as Jews, members of our own nation. And I think that that's something that's definitely going right, that I give props for, and I see it a lot also on the individual level and also on the organizational level. So I think that that's something that makes me happy. I think one of the issues right now is a lot of people still kind of look at the the issue in like a transactional way, and in a way that makes them think, in order for me to be part of this movement, I'm going to have to separate my Jewish identity for a second, step into this space. And I think that that's bad because it gets rid of the authenticity and, the actual genuine care for another group if you're taking a part of yourself away from something in order to stand in solidarity, instead of recognizing that if you're standing for racial justice, if you're standing against anti-Asian racism and Orientalism, you're standing for Jews as well. And you're standing for allies who also fall within those categories. And I think that the more we try and separate our identities from that and make ourselves seem to be just allies, as opposed to people who, as a community have stake in these issues as well, that sets us back.
Yeah, that's such an important point as well. I mean, the idea that we need to do something in order for other people to support us. No, we need to support social justice movement because it's just, and then expect other people to join us. That will come naturally, and that's what intersectionality is about. That's why people working together. But the fact that some people that are belonging to some marginalized group have ideas that we disagree with, that's fine. It doesn't make the cause less important. The same way that we need to educate others that supporting Jewish rights and supporting Zionism is not contingent on what some people think about this issue. So thank you, Noah, for that.
Are you looking for that perfect gift? The one thing you know that they won't have? Now you can honor someone you love and participate in the sacred act of writing a Torah. You can go online and choose a letter, word, verse, or more in a Torah being written right here in Israel on top of Masada. Beautiful certificate will be sent, signifying the link to our ancient past, and be something that they can keep forever. It's the ideal gift for birth, bar and bat mitzvahs, birthdays, engagements, weddings, anniversaries, and other milestones in life.
I want to go back to you, Isabella. What do you think is the most important thing that young Jews should know about Zionism? Why do you think people misunderstand this part about Zionism, and what can we do to advocate to improve that thing? I mean, what is this thing that you think we need to work on?
That Zionism is just. Zionism is justice. Zionism is an act of decolonization. And I think Amy and Noah both touched on it when it comes to speaking about who we are as a people. Zionism, yeah, sure, it's a political movement because we sought sovereignty, but Zionism is a Jewish liberation movement. It's the Jewish civil rights movement. And as Noah said, it's not transactional. So when we're talking about Zionism, if the non-Jewish world doesn't identify with this term, but identifies with other liberation movements, well, it's because we have to go out there and take back our story and say our story for who it is. And the Jews should be saying the Jewish story. Zionists should be saying what Zionism is. So if there's something that I think that Jews should know, is that Zionism is just, it's justice, it's our liberation movement, and to not learn about Zionism from anti-Zionists, because the same way we wouldn't learn about any other minority movement from those who oppose that movement, it wouldn't make sense for it to happen to the Jewish people. So that's a really gross double standard and something that exists. So to really learn about Judaism from Jews, and I think that would be my 2 cents on that one.
Oh, I love that. That's such an important point. Zionists should be the ones defining Zionism. Jews should be the one defining Jewish identity, and not allow anyone else to take over that. Amy, I want to go to you back. The same question that I asked Isabella. What do you think is the biggest misconception that we need to educate people about?
To add on to what Isabella said about Zionism, I think that a big point that people don't understand because they're learning about Zionism from anti-Zionists or not Jewish people is that Zionism is at the expense of someone else. Zionism, as much as it sounds bad to say this, has nothing to do with Palestinians. It's not at the expense of Palestinians for the Jews to reclaim our indigenous homeland and to have the state of Israel. And at this point, with anti-Semitism, it's become necessary. And I think, like we've been talking about, is educating our young Jewish people and Jewish people in general about the stories of all the different Jews, because not all of our families necessarily maybe need Israel in the same way as others. My family, we left Eastern Europe before the Holocaust, thank God. But families like yours, Chen, they literally would not be here without Israel. And then you have modern anti-Semitism on top of that, where sometimes I'm afraid that we won't be able to live literally anywhere else. So Israel is just a necessity. That on top of the fact that it is our indigenous homeland, as Isabella keeps reminding us, and And our culture and our religious practice and just everything is inextricably tied to that land. And I think you can see it very clearly in examples like Seth Rogen, who is a very prominent Jewish figure, as much as we don't necessarily want him to be, because he's out there telling people we don't need Israel. With all due respect, Seth, maybe your family doesn't need Israel at this moment, but I'm looking at some people here whose families definitely need Israel. And God forbid one day that all of our families and ourselves do need Israel. So I think that's just a really important point also.
Yeah, absolutely. That's goes to Seth Rogen from all of us that we're no comedians, but we know that this is just not funny. And the point that without Israel, my family would be dead. My mother, my father, my mother came to Israel from Iraq. My father came from Tunisia. All of their family, I mean, their brothers and sisters. We're talking about 16 on one side, 12 on the other side. After violence that they experienced in those countries, the only place that would take them wasn't America, it wasn't Europe, it was Israel. Because unlike other people, that it is important to say that anti-Zionism must be a point of privilege for Jews. If a Jewish person is anti-Zionist, it comes from a point of privilege. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Zionist. Because Zionism, for me and my family and many of your families as well, was a lifeline. And while again, as you said, we also need to educate that we are indigenous and we have claim to this land.
There's no better gift to give or receive than one that can connect you with nature and your homeland. JNF has made it super easy for you to order your tree certificate online. Just go to jnf.org/trees, pick which special occasion it's for, whether a birth, bar mitzvah, just order your tree online and let's get planting. Every tree counts. As a memorial to a loved one, as a tribute for a special occasion, as a link to your heritage, as a link to the land of Israel, to help the environment and reduce your carbon footprint. Every tree counts.
And I want to also go to you, Noah, on that point. What do you think we need to change or to re-educate people about?
Yeah, so I think that I'll frame it like this. I think that a lot of times the conversations around Zionism and anti-Zionism, a lot of times in the diaspora, occupy, at least in the North American diaspora, I'll speak from, occupy sort of a philosophical debate space. You hear people talk about how, oh, I'm just anti-Zionist because I don't agree with the Israeli government. And the response is, well, if you're anti-Zionist, then you're anti-Semitic because 90-something% of Jews, either in America or Canada or Mexico, are Zionists, which is an extremely valid point that is actually like a good counter argument to say, like, if you're against 96% of Jewish people, you're against Jewish people. It's pretty easy to see. In addition to that, I think that being a Jew who's currently living in Israel has added like some concrete understanding to my perspective. And I've started to really think about, okay, like if you're an anti-Zionist, you're not only philosophically against the beliefs that we have in the North American diaspora, you're against half of the Jewish people and where we live. You're literally against our existence. And we saw that this past spring. And for me, that really what the way that I also think about it is, there have been people who try and say like, oh, like Black Americans, you're different. We just don't want people coming from Africa because they're not as developed and they're primitive. And maybe they, deserve to have colonialism because it's going to, make their societies more civilized. And that's the kind of rhetoric that is shunned in progressive spaces as it should. And I would get offended at that because I'm saying, yeah, like you're not going to be able to separate me as a Black person from the mother continent. And to try and put Jews in that same, binary where it's like Jews in America, it's just a philosophical debate, and try and make it seem like there's a division between that and all the Jews in America who have cousins here, siblings here, parents here, and even spiritual and cultural and ethnic roots here, it's unacceptable. So I think that we also need to work on bridging that divide between Jews in the diaspora and Jews in Israel, and making sure that connection is stronger. So, I could quickly get into a funny story that I had. When I first arrived here, it was towards the end of May, my taxi driver, he picks me up and he's like, oh, you came from America. My brother, how is it there? I've seen how horrible the anti-Semitism is there. You must have been like so scared. How is it? Are you doing okay? Is there anything we can do? And I'm sitting there like, you live in Ashkelon. right next to Gaza. Like, you were literally just running to bomb shelters and you're asking me if I'm okay. Are you okay? And I think that the fact of having that mutual respect for each other, recognizing we have the same roots and we're dealing with issues that manifest themselves in different ways, but come from the same root cause of Jew hatred that's, existed all over the world, is something that we really can do a lot more of in the Jewish community to help us build that bond and form a stronger community, both in spite of anti-Semitism and also independent of anti-Semitism and Jew hatred.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more on that. So on that note, I want to thank you all for joining us for part 1, and I hope to see you in part 2. Join us.